What's up, guys? Welcome to the Kingdom Men Transfer Man Nation podcast, brought to you by our sponsor, the Acquisition CEO. If you're looking to buy or sell a business, check out the link below. Today, I have on a friend and a special guest,
Chantel Vandevelde.
and she has an amazing, inspirational story. So, Chantel, let's talk about that first. Tell us. Well, I brought you on today because we met at a Shark Tank Kids homeschooling thing, which we love homeschooling. But you've got a pretty interesting story. So I want to talk about that today because I want people that listen to this to have hope, to be inspired, and to know that you can change. And because you've changed a lot, right?
Yeah.
And look at this smile, right? She's full of joy, full of energy. But you weren't that way that long ago.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that. How long ago was that?
So it was about 8 years ago.
Okay.
I was bedridden, and I was over 300 pounds, about 320 pounds, and on 15 different prescriptions every single day. At the time, I was sleeping probably about 20 hours a day.
Oh, my gosh.
My kids were in public school, which there's so many benefits to public school also. So, not knocking public school, but
Sure.
but they were in public school at the time, and I couldn't even get up to get them up for school. So there were just a lot of things my daughter had to take over for us because I was too sick to really do anything and be a mom. And at the time, the doctors just kept telling me, oh, we'll give you this pill and that pill, and we're just going to make you more comfortable. And I know that more comfortable means that something's wrong, right? And they said that my organs were shutting down, and they didn't know why.
And how old were you?
30 years old.
30 years old.
And I had, Gabriel was only 2 at the time. So I had a 2-year-old. And so I'm thinking, like, I've got my girls, I've got Gabriel, and they're going to be left without a mom if I don't do something outside of the realm of what the doctors were telling me that I needed to do when they really never dove deep into what the actual issue was in the first place.
Right.
So after my husband came home and found me a couple times and thought that I was dead, we knew that we had to make a drastic change and we had to do something right away. And so I just really cried out and said, God, I need you to show me what's next. What are we supposed to do here? And we came across a documentary called Forks Over Knives.
Okay.
And
Is that on Netflix?
It is on
Okay.
Netflix, and it's
So
a
people can watch
documentary.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a documentary where other people, firefighters actually, were talking about how a lot of them were having health issues, and they didn't know why and what was going on with them either. And then they started sharing that one guy decided to change his diet to a whole food plant-based diet. And then brought that into his firehouse that he worked at and started sharing with the other guys. And then everybody started getting better. And
Okay.
so when we saw that, I was like, okay, well, it's worth a try anyways. Like, because at this point, like I was out of cards in my hand, and so I had to try something completely different than what I'd ever done before.
Yeah.
I've always eaten standard American diet. And
Which
I've
is
always,
junk.
yes. And I've always had trouble with going to the bathroom. Like, even as a kid, I could only go like once a week.
Yeah.
And nobody ever knew what the issue was.
Yeah.
And the whole time it was food for me. And so when we changed our diet, it was less than a month that I was up. I was cooking again. I was doing things with the kids.
So less than a month
in less
after you
than a
made
month.
this dietary change. Well, Tiana and I were talking earlier about how food is either fueling our life or fueling disease.
Mm-hmm.
One of the two.
Absolutely.
I mean, the food that we eat has a massive impact on how we grow and how our body operates, and how we're in alignment mentally, physically, and emotionally. Like, your emotions are better, your energy's better, your mindset's better, simply because you started to shift your diet.
Mm-hmm. And now I've lost 160 pounds, and I've been able to keep all that weight off for the last 8 years. And it's not just about the weight, because now I don't have to take any prescription medications, which is phenomenal.
Because you were on 15 medications, over 300 pounds, laying in the bed 20 hours a day. And now you're eating a plant-based diet. It's been 8 years, and you're not on any medications.
Exactly. And also for our kids, the girls were diagnosed with ADD and ADHD. We had played around with medication for them in the beginning because I was on so many medicines. That was just like the route
like the
that
right
we
answer.
took. Yes. And when I changed my diet and saw what was happening for me, all of a sudden we're like, okay, maybe we need to reevaluate what we're doing with the kids as well. And so we started changing the diet for our whole family. So everybody switched over to whole food plant-based after that month of me doing it and getting better.
Yeah.
The girls got off all their medicines. They don't struggle with ADD or ADHD anymore at all. Gabriel was getting sores in his head, like big sores. It was gluten causing his sores. And I had scalp psoriasis at the time also that was also caused by gluten.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that we started digging, we're like, oh, okay, like all these things are related. And our daughter, Cheyenne, was getting migraines like 3 to 4 days a week. Migraines that I would have to go pick her up from school. She was 9, and she would be vomiting, sleeping all day. It was dairy. It was dairy causing her migraines. And then we found out that's like a common migraine trigger for a lot of people, but nobody ever really talks about it.
Right.
And then for my husband, after months of doing this, when we went gluten-free, I switched our food over to mostly corn. Like I was using corn flour, corn chips, corn tortillas. It seemed like a really good, easy substitute. But he started having mental health trouble that he wasn't having before. And that ended up being caused by the corn. And we actually were watching a different documentary. I don't recall the name of that one, but we were eating a bowl of popcorn watching this documentary, and a psychiatrist had mentioned that one of his clients was having suicidal visions from corn. And he described it. It was exactly what was going on with my husband. We cut the corn out, and he's not had any issues since.
That's amazing. So corn actually is not really that good for us, and it can be very hard for us to process inside of our gut. And you're probably familiar with this now, and Tiana and I were talking about it earlier. Our gut is like our second brain. And so obviously with having health issues and those kind of things, you understand that concept. But they're like even oatmeal. Oatmeal is not really good for our diet. In our dietary tract. Same thing with corn. They have a coating on them that Mother Nature puts on there that makes it hard for our body to process. And a lot of people don't know that. You know, they think corn, they think healthy, corn tortillas, corn chips, all the things. But it's really not that great to eat in excess. And it's funny, earlier we were talking about this too, like the food that we eat is critical. It is fuel for our body. It really is. And it's not really complicated. You know, we just desire a lot of the wrong things. The ice creams, the cakes, the muffins, the blueberries in the standard American diet. What a lot of people don't know is that breakfast was a marketing scheme back in the day. Like back in, I think it might have been the 40s or 50s. There was a whole marketing scheme like for farmers so that they could sell more breakfast foods. And so they did this whole plan where they basically convinced people that they needed to eat this big, healthy breakfast. But it included, you know, a lot of things around flour and grain. And they do the same thing nowadays with corn, like corns and everything. High fructose corn syrup. I mean, there's corn literally in tons and tons of food because it's mass produced and it's easily available, but not super healthy for us.
Right. And the corn syrup is one thing that we found out even the corn syrup would trigger issues for my husband. And like you said, it's in everything.
It is.
So we had to remove a lot of processed food, which is great because in a whole food plant-based diet, you're really not eating processed food. It's more about all the whole foods and the fruits, the vegetables. We did do a lot of grains in the beginning, like oats specifically, after we switched off corn. But now, you know, we're looking at more things like pseudo grains, like quinoa. We're doing a lot more quinoa and using that. You can use quinoa even as a flour.
Yeah, you can.
For baking and sorghum.
Okay, yeah.
So there's a lot of other choices out there besides what we're being presented with all the time. And the more that something is pushed as a food, the more that I'm questioning why.
Sure, like the marketing behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. A lot of things that are marketed as health foods that have big branding and those kind of things on it. Even like whole wheat, you know, whole wheat is pushed as a healthy bread, but it's not. Whole wheat's actually hard on our intestinal tract, and it actually kind of cuts the gut just on like an atomic level. And so it tears us up, literally tears our stomach up. And a lot of the things that we eat, a lot of the gluten-based stuff and just the chemicals and the processed ingredients that are in those foods, they're really, really terrible and actually kind of poisonous for our body. And a lot of people don't realize that. But we're sold these ideas like breakfast cereals. I mean, how cool do the boxes look? They're full of colors. They're vibrant. Kids love them. They're cartoon characters. But they're terrible for us.
Right, and then you're adding other things like milk on top of it, and not saying that milk
and
in and of itself is an
things.
issue, but a lot of people are lactose intolerant and they don't realize that.
Well, milk is, there's a place for some dairy, but milk really was intended for newborns and infants. It wasn't intended for grown people. Like grown cows don't drink milk.
Right.
Grown bears don't drink milk. Grown animals don't drink that much milk, or if any, actually, technically. And so, yeah, you're 100% right. But a lot of people, there's so much information on the internet between Instagram and YouTube and sales and marketing and all that kind of stuff. A lot of people miss the simple concept of eating a simple diet. Mm-hmm. I always just eat real food. I always tell people if it had and I eat meat, and I know that you don't, and that's a difference, and that's okay. But like if it had a heartbeat or it was grown in the ground, eat it. If you want something, there are other like quinoa or potato-based stuff. Even jasmine rice is a good, healthy rice, actually. Brown rice and white rice are actually terrible and really over-processed.
Yes.
But
and brown rice can be also hard to digest, like you were talking about the whole wheat.
It is. Brown rice and whole wheat are not good nutritional products. They're not good substitutes for the whites. They're equally as bad. And a lot of people don't realize that. They may hit different on the glycemic index, but the way that they're chemically created is not good. But that's why in our household we primarily just eat simple stuff like bananas and peanut butter. Peanuts are a weird topic. They can be a moldy thing. A lot of people don't know that either.
Yeah. So I learned about with peanuts, there's one type of peanut that doesn't grow mold like the rest, and it's the Valencia peanut.
Okay.
And Trader Joe's actually sells Valencia peanut butter.
Okay.
So that's like one of the only peanut butters that we eat in our house because I will react to the mold, and I don't know if that's because of like previous mold exposure that I maybe don't know about. Yeah. But yeah, I learned about the peanut mold thing too, and then I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know about that either. But here's what's interesting about the internet is this stuff isn't talked about in a simple way very often, but it's actually not that complicated. Tiana was saying earlier, and it's a really good concept, when you go to the grocery store, shop the outside aisles. You know, if it's on the inside aisles, it's probably processed and it probably has a long-term expiration date. If you look at it and it says, you know, expires 6 months from now, probably something wrong with it. I mean, food's not made to last that long. Like, that's why you got to put it in the refrigerator, or that's why things rot, because they go bad, and they're supposed to. Talking about that, though, talking about foods and those kind of things, you guys have a cool business. Let's talk about that for a little bit. So tell us the name of your business.
Okay, so our business is called Sip and Sparkle.
Okay.
It is my 16-year-old daughter's brainchild. She's the one who thought this up, and we just kind of helped her flesh it out. Yeah. And she obviously holds to the same standards for her food that she eats as we do. And we cut out all dye. Mm-hmm. So if we do eat anything that's processed, like dye is a big no-no in our house, and corn syrup also is definitely a no. So when we were thinking about serving drinks for people, my son is 11. He's never had a slushie until we started this business because we don't do dye, we don't do corn syrup, and I've never been able to find a clean product for him to try. Yeah. And so when we bought this business and started it, he tried a slushie for the first time, and he was like, "Oh, this is phenomenal!" So I'm excited for him because he is like pumped, right? Yeah. Like now I get to be like other kids, right?
Yeah, you get to have a slushie.
Yeah. So we have a slushie and mocktail trailer, and we just added Italian sodas also.
Okay.
Because those are also fun and a lot of times have dye and corn syrup. Mm-hmm. So with our slushies, I'm using organic agave syrup to make the base. And then all of the things that we're adding in there are all natural flavors, no artificial anything, no dye, no corn syrup, no gluten, all vegan, kosher. Everything's made in the United States. Also, everything's also non-GMO. So we're bringing a product out there that I'm hoping that everybody can try, because I know there's a lot of other kids who have not ever had a slushie in their whole entire life.
Well, I think it's a good thing too. Like the culture that we live in, we say that we need bad things to take a break, right? Like we need to eat ice cream because I deserve it. Like I need a break. Oh, I've had a hard day. Let me eat ice cream. Or same thing with drinking or other bad habits. We want to take a break and go do bad things. But what you guys have is something that you can enjoy. Like you can really enjoy that. It's healthy for you. It's good for you. And it literally, you can be like, man, I would love to have one of those. So a couple of upcoming events that you guys have going on, because you're in a horse trailer, right?
Yeah, we have a small converted horse trailer. Okay. And I've seen a lot of people turning those into mobile bars. Yeah. And we've been alcohol free also for about 9 years. Sure. So for us, it was like, I also want to offer drinks for adults. Yeah. To be able to have something fun and fruity that's not going to make them feel terrible tomorrow or come to a party. Or a lot of people are having weddings that are non-alcoholic now because they really don't want their drunk uncle at their wedding. You know, I can't really blame them. Yeah, I don't blame them either. Yeah. So our next event that we have coming up, we're going to be at Thompson Farms, which is a tulip farm. This coming Saturday, and there's going to be quite a lot of people out there to pick tulips. They have your own You Pick tulips, which I think is really cool. Okay. And my husband is Belgian by descent. Really? And so it's funny to me, my little Dutch husband, we're going to go to the tulip farm. Going to go to the tulip farm and set up the mocktail horse trailer. Yeah. My little Dutch husband. That's so funny. So then. Is that his nickname? Yes. I'm just kidding. I do call him that. And then the next Saturday after that, we're going to be in Duncan at their Easter egg event. So they're having a big Easter egg hunt, and we're going to be out there for that. So
a couple of things. So check them out for sure. Sip and Sparkle. You've got a Facebook page. Check them
Instagram.
out. And Instagram. Check them out at Thompson's Tulip Farm. And then what is it in Duncan?
It's the Duncan Easter egg event.
Duncan Easter egg event.
And on May 4th, I'm planning a ball.
Okay.
Because I love to throw a good party.
Yeah.
And a lot of times parties are centered around alcohol.
Yep.
So I'm going to throw my own party that's centered around having fun without any alcohol and having healthy drinks and healthy food to serve at the party and clean music so that everybody can come. Bring your grandma, bring your kids, you know, and we're going to be out at the farm at Ballinger in Landrum for that on May 4th.
So you don't have to be destructive to have a good time.
That's right. Yeah, that was a hard lesson for me to learn.
I think it's a hard lesson for a lot of people to learn. A lot of times it costs us something. Almost cost you something.
Almost cost me everything.
Almost cost you everything. And that's what I want people to take away who are listening to this, just again to be encouraged and to be inspired that not only is it possible, but you can change. It brings me so much joy to see your energy and see your smile and see your excitement and full of life, right? That's the cool thing. Like you literally are full of life, and your family's better for it. You're better for it, but you're also doing things and bringing awareness to that through the Sip and Sparkle stuff and the mocktails and those kind of things.
And I wrote a cookbook.
And you wrote a cookbook. That's right.
Called Healthy Family Fast.
There you
Beginning a Plant-Based Lifestyle that talks about our story and how things changed over for us.
So is that cookbook on Amazon?
It is on Amazon.
Okay, so it's on Amazon.
And it's on Kindle, and also you get a paperback copy also. And I made sure there's a picture for every single recipe. I did everything about the book myself. So that was cool. It was a lot of learning.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure to show other people that like we can have lasagna still. We eat burgers. Like we have anything you can think of that's a normal food. I can make it in a way that is gluten-free and vegan and whole food plant-based that's healthy for people to be able to eat.
Well, and here's the cool thing too, that a lot of times, like when you were laying on your deathbed, you weren't thinking about the potential impact that you could make. But now you've created a cookbook, you're making a difference, you have a story to share, and somebody's going to hear this and go, you know what? I believe I can change too. And so you never know what impact you may have. Imagine if you'd have just given up, right? If you'd have just stayed right there. Who knows, your kids, your grandkids, who knows? Might not have had the story, their inspiration or your energy, or even somebody hearing this, or somebody you run into in a parking lot. We wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation if you'd have stayed the same. And so I want people to always be encouraged that you don't have to stay where you're at. That's not the end of the road. You can go somewhere and do different things. And not only can you, but when you do, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Like seeing the joy in your face and talking about your kids and talking about your Dutch husband and going to the tulip farm and all those fun things is so much, it brings so much fulfillment and significance to your life. But it's also fulfilling like God's passion and purpose in your life. Mm-hmm. It's not about staying where you were. And so I'm inspired and encouraged by that. And I think
thank you.
Yeah. And I'm excited for people to hear this story because when I heard it, I was like, because that was, how many pounds?
160 pounds.
160 pounds. That's not like, hey, I lost 10 pounds or, hey, I did 75 hard and I lost 5 pounds or whatever it may be. Like that is a commitment.
Yeah.
And you've kept it off and you've stayed.
Yeah. And sometimes, with a lot of events being centered around food.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was a little hard for me because food can be addictive.
Sure. Yeah, we can eat our feelings.
For sure. And I feel like that was kind of how I grew up, right?
Yeah.
Was learning that pattern. And so I had to unlearn that pattern and be okay with bringing my own snacks or showing up and like I would bring a lasagna to the event and share my lasagna. People are eating it up. This is the best lasagna I've ever had. Well, there's no meat or dairy or gluten in there.
Yeah.
Those noodles are made with lentils,
Yeah.
So it was mind blowing to me to see other people also enjoying my food that I was making and loving it and saying, hey, this tastes great. You can still eat great and have wonderful tasting food without having to have the overly processed and all the chemicals added to the food. So
yeah, I agree. 100%. We don't eat out very much. For that reason. Mm-hmm. And I think last year I ate 6 biscuits. I just hate the way they make me feel. Mm-hmm. And then also I'd gotten committed to not eating fried food.
Yeah.
Not that it was very common, but even it was more common than I would like for it to be. But that grease and all those things inside of your gut is just not good for you. And I think that's one of the key takeaways from today is just that the food that we eat is either fueling us or it's killing us. literally in your case, the food
Yeah.
that you were eating was literally killing you, and it brought you to a point to where you were done.
And what I tell people is everybody's body is different.
Sure.
But also everybody's body loves fruits and vegetables. That's
Yes.
just how we were made.
Everybody's
and
body
designed.
loves real food,
Mhm.
right? It's full of nutrients. It's actually how we were made to eat from the
Right.
beginning. Like, 1,000 years ago, they didn't have freezers and refrigerators and processed food in cans. All that came from marketing and sales and overconsumption.
Mhm. And bread was made fresh every day if it was being made.
Correct.
And there was
Full of different
not
ingredients.
weird additives in there to keep
Yeah.
it good on the shelf for 6 months.
Right. It had a short expiration life.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's fantastic and huge. So one of the things I always like to ask people that come on the show is if there was a top tip or a top piece of advice you could give somebody that might make a difference in their life and they're listening to this, what would that be?
To pay attention how food is making you feel. Look, when you eat biscuits, you said
Yeah.
you notice that you don't feel well afterwards.
Right.
So if we pay attention to our body will tell us what it wants and what it doesn't want.
It'll trigger.
That's right. And it's not those cravings, right? So if you're like, oh, I just need ice cream, right? There's probably something in the ice cream your body is craving. It might be fat.
Sure.
It could be that you need a little bit of extra sugar. So have an apple or a banana,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
To pay attention to those cravings, but really break it down and see why is your body craving that thing and how do you feel if you follow through and eat that? Like I love French fries,
Okay.
but when I eat them, I don't really feel well afterwards. So
Yeah.
it's become one of those things that I'm like, okay, the French fries have to go now.
Sure. And you start to pay. I think that's a huge point. And I tell people that all the time when I coach them is pay attention. Same thing in your personal life or your business or your gut health and those things. Pay attention to what's not working and what's not going on because it causes anxiety, it causes chaos, it causes destruction in our lives. And simply that's a reflection of like the red alarms going off, right? That's the alerts. But a lot of times we kind of push the silence button on the alarms and we just kind of we go like this.
Until system shut down.
Right, until like the plane is crashing.
Yes.
And so I'm like, quit silencing the alarm and just start paying attention because it's so true. The food that we eat, the way that we exercise, the way that we think, the things we say to ourselves, it's the things we consume us. And so if we're consuming junk, both in our mindset or our the things that we eat, then those things consume us. And that's kind of where we become like you were consuming junk and then your life was kind of becoming junk.
Yep.
And so it's an interesting, simple concept. Thank you, Chantel, for being on the show today. We greatly appreciate it. Check you out on, what's the best way? Instagram, Facebook, TikTok?
Instagram and Facebook.
Instagram, Facebook.
We don't have TikTok yet, but I'm going to learn that.
Oh, TikTok's super fun. You'll have a lot of fun. It can be a huge distraction. And that's Sip and Sparkle?
Sip and Sparkle and also Healthy Family Fast. That's where I do more of our teaching on things.
And that's on Instagram too?
Yes, and we're on Facebook as well.
And Facebook. And then your cookbook you can get on Amazon. And the name of that cookbook is?
Healthy Family Fast,
Healthy
Beginning
Family
a
Fast.
Plant-Based Lifestyle.
Okay, that's awesome. And I promise that if you're listening to this and you're curious about change, you can hit her up, hit me up, or hit up other guests on the show and ask questions about getting started in some change because everybody that has changed is passionate about helping other people change. And so thank you again for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, guys, for watching the Kingdom Men Transfer Man Nation podcast. And thank you to our sponsor, the Acquisition CEO. If you're interested in buying or selling a business, check out the link below and let's go do some winning. See ya.